Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and today we're going to do a cute fun fold idea featuring the Pansy Patch stamps and the Pansy dies, and I'm calling this our window surprise card. Let me show you. So we have a window on the front, and we're going to learn about making these 3D pansies. The surprise is that when you open it, it actually is two cards in one, and that this flips up. And there you have your additional sentiment on the inside. So that's our window surprise fun fold that we're going to make today. So let's just get right into it. Again, we're going to be using the Pansy Patch stamps, the Pansy, and all we're really using from this is the happy birthday and then the wishing you a little extra happiness. But we're going to be using the Pansy dies. And we're going to need to use this, the leaves, and the buds. And I'll show you that I have these all cut out, and I'll show you what we're using for that. We're also going to need the layering circles dies. And then we're going to be using some ribbon, and we're going to be using these gems. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to need to make the card. Our card base is soft succulent, and it is 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. And then you're going to need a piece of designer series paper. This is also the Pansy designer series paper. This is the back side. This is the side we're going to be using. And this is 5 3/8 by 4. You're going to need a piece of basic white. That is this is 4 by 10 3/4, scored at 5 3/8. And that's all the actual card components. But let me show you, I cut out of the pale papaya. This is from the Stitched Labels dies, and that's where I got our label to use on the front. And then let's talk about the pansy. So I've got this out of basic white. I've got 2 of these out of the pale papaya. I've got 1 of these borders out of the pale papaya for the big piece. And then the borders for the smaller pieces I cut out of Calypso Coral, and I need 2 of those. And then for the center, I used Calypso Coral for the center, the piece that kind of looks like a beard. And then I also did a Daffodil Delight for the dot in the middle. So then we're going to need 1 of these for our bud. That's the pale papaya. And then the piece that goes behind it is going to be basic white. And here's the stem that goes with that, and that's out of Evening Evergreen. And then we have 1 of the larger leaves and 1 of the smaller leaves in soft succulent. And then we have the detail for each of those. That's the Evening Evergreen. Okay, so that's the pieces that we're going to be using. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of sponging that we're going to be doing. So I'm just going to bring in my sponge daubers. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Daffodil Delight, and I'm going to work on my white piece. And so I just want to put some on the middle and then kind of expand out from there just to give some good color. So I'm just putting my dauber in here, and I'm going to bring in a scrap piece of paper. And then I'm just going to go in some circles to just get a little bit of color. Just like that. And then I want to take Calypso Coral. I'm using the little cube. And let's see if this, yeah, this one will work. And so on these pale papaya pieces, I just want to do some Calypso Coral in the middle part. Just to give it a little definition in the middle. Just like that. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. I'm going to go a little bit darker on this one. Okay. And then on my little white bud, I want to do a little bit of the Calypso Coral on it. Just to give it a little bit of, and I'm going a little bit with a lighter hand on this. Just like that. And that's all of our sponge daubing that we're going to do. So I can move those out of the way. And then we're going to come in with our piece of pale papaya, that's our tag. And we're going to use black memento for this. And we're going to use the happy birthday. So I'm just going to ink this up. And then I'm just going to stamp this on this tag. Just like that. And then on our piece of white that's going on the inside, so I've got this already scored. So on the inside, we want to stamp wishing you a little extra happiness just because you're you. So I'm just going to ink that up. And I'm just going to center this. And just press down on that. Okay, we've got that done. And then we can start working on putting the card together. So I'm going to start, I'm going to bring in my soft succulent piece. And I also have a scrap of the evening evergreen because we're going to need that as well to do our frame. So I just have a scrap of that. So on my layering circles, I want to use the biggest scallop and the second biggest of the regular. Okay, so I'm going to start with my soft succulent piece, and I'm going to bring in my die cutting machine. Hopefully I've got that in the screen where you can see it. And so I've got this is my soft succulent piece. I've got it already scored. On the front panel, so if you think of this as being the front, I want to put this circle, and I'm keeping it towards the top. And there's no exact placement for this. It's just wherever you think it looks good. So I think I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to cut my circle out. And save these circles. You can definitely use those for another project. And And then for the evening evergreen, I want to start by cutting that same circle, but leave yourself some space because we're going to cut the frame around it. So you don't want to get it too close to the edge. So I'm just going to put this through. And so you're going to have another circle that you can keep for another project. And then I'm going to take the scalloped circle that I showed you, and I'm going to just layer this around that, just trying to get it equal, equidistance around the circle. Try to get it even. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to put this through, and this is going to give us our frame for the front. And then we're just going to be ready to start putting things together. So that gives us our frame. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my frame around my window. And I'm just using a little bit of the liquid glue. And you don't need a ton of this. I mean, it doesn't need to be solid. I'm just going to put some little dots here and there. What you don't want is for the glue to be squeezing out all over the place. So I'm just putting just a little. Okay. And I'm just going to line this up around my window, just like that. Okay. I'm going to set that aside. Now this is going to be our inside piece, so I'm going to go ahead and fold this. And if you caught what I said about this, it's 10 3/4 instead of 11, and it's scored at 5 3/8 instead of the normal 5 1/2. And the reason for doing that is I want it to fit inside of our card base, so it has to be a little bit smaller. So then we're going to take our piece of designer series paper, and it's going to go right on there like that. So let me put a little bit of liquid glue on this. And I'm going to line it at the top up here at the fold. And again, that's what's great about the liquid glue, is because you have time to move it if you need to. And then I always check the bottom to make sure if I need to trim that a little bit. Getting two pieces trimmed exactly the same, and that actually looks pretty good, so I'm not going to worry about it. So then we're able to put this inside. This is going to just attach inside here, just like this. I'm going to hold those ends together and come in with my bone folder and just give it a good crease. Okay, now we're ready to add that to our, so again, I'm just going to come in with some liquid glue. Okay. I'm I just want to make sure that it's totally in the card. Just like that. Pressing down. And I'm just going to fold this over, and I'm going to turn this over and just give it a good crease with the bone folder. And I'm going to set this aside for a moment, and we can start building our pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add our pale papaya piece onto the white piece. And again, I'm just going to use some liquid glue. You don't have to get it all over everything. Just make sure you hit the fragile parts. Okay. And then I'm just going to, this just goes around the edge. It'll just fit nicely around the edge. So I'm going to press that down. And again, with the liquid glue, you have a little bit of time to maneuver. Just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the pale papaya pieces with the Calypso coral trim. I'm going to go ahead and add those. So these just go around the top edge. So you're just going to line this up. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other piece. Lining that up on the edge. These pansies look way more intimidating than what they are. They're just not that bad to put together. Okay. All right, and we got that done. I'm going to go ahead and add the detail to the leaves. Same process, I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid glue. Just like that. And it just lines up. If you line it up on the left side, the rest of it will just fall into place. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the smaller leaf. Lining it up with the left side. And then pressing down, just like that. And then we're ready to put our little bud together. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of the basic white piece. And then the pale papaya piece just sits right on top of that. Just line the bottoms up. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of the pale papaya piece. And then we're ready to come in with our stem. And that just lays down on top of that. Just like that. And these pieces are all ready to start layering together. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this thing that looks like a beard or a mustache. So I'm just going to take the dimensional, and I just want it to not stick up past the top of the bearded piece, just like that. I'm going to make sure that it's not sticking out the edges or anything like that. And this just goes right at the top of our basic white piece. We're just going to stick it on there. And then that sticky part in the center, we're just going to use our Daffodil Delight piece, our little center that we cut out. And it's just going to stick right on top of there. Just like that. Okay. Now we're ready to put our back petals on. So I'm just going to put a little glue at the bottom. And I'm just going to hold this. Just hold that to the back. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Let's put some glue on that. And it's just going to go just like that. And that gives us our pansy. And you can look in the catalog. There's all kinds of neat ideas for color combinations that you can use. So this I want to put on our front with some dimensionals. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the dimensionals on here. I want to be able to tuck my leaves and my bud down behind it. So the way I put this on the front was I closed the front and then just kind of centered my pansy in the middle. And then I was able to build from there with my leaves and my bud. And I wanted to get the bud in next. So I want it to kind of go like to the side a little bit. And so the whole bud's not going to be in the window, but that was okay with me. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back of this. A little bit on the stem. You could always trim off some of the stem if you need to. And I like to close the window a little bit when I'm trying to place this, just so I get an idea of where I want my stem to go. And I think I am going to tear a little piece of that off because it's going to go down behind the flower. So it's not really going to matter. So I'm just going to lift this up. And put that down, just like that. Okay, and then we're just going to add the leaves on the other side. And we have the little leaf. And I'm just going to tuck that in a little bit. Just like that. Okay, and then our happy birthday piece, our little label is going to go on the front as well. And I did not pop this up. I figured we had enough dimension going on that I did not want to pop this up. So I'm just gluing this straight down to the front. Okay, and then for my ribbon, I'm using the Pale Papaya ribbon. I'm just going to cut off enough that I have a little extra because I can always trim it after I get it tied. I'm going to have my glue dots handy because I'm going to use those as well. So I'm going to bring, I wanted a knot, but I wanted it down towards the bottom. So the way I did this, I'm just going to tuck this under and make like a cross. I want to slide this over. Just like that. And then I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool to get one of my glue dots. And I'm going to tuck that behind where that knot is. So that I can make the cross and just push it down into that. That frees up my hands to be able to finish the knot. So I'm just going to tuck this back under. And just pull those tight. And there I have my knot for the end. And then I'm just going to trim. Just like that. So that's got that trimmed. Slide that over just a little to make it line up a little bit better. Just like that. And then the last thing to do is I just used some of these gems. And I just used 3 of them. And you can place them wherever you want. You could always use more if you wanted to. There we have it. So our card opens like this, and then it opens like this, and you still have room to write on the inside. A window card with a surprise. I hope you'll give this a try. If you're new to my channel, be sure and hit the subscribe button and the little bell, and you'll be notified every time I do a new video. Check out my Facebook group, my Facebook page, Karen's Cards and More. And you can order any of the products that you've seen me use here, the Pansy dies and Pansy stamp set and the designer series paper. You can order that from my store, karensmith.stampinup.net. And I'll be back again to craft with you soon.